Because
It's not
again,
the pink.
you're supposed to be in bed.
No, I know. I should have done it from bed in my pajamas. Imagine that. It would have been a bit unusual.
This guy's got double beers.
You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers crush all the industry BS and learn what it takes to charge what you're worth and build badass, rewarding careers. You're about to listen to a conversation between designers, just like the ones that you all have with your designer friends. The only difference is we've recorded it and now we're sharing it with you. But before we kick things off, let me just clear something up. We're here to share our thoughts on design, offer some constructive criticism, and dive deep into what makes logos tick or ticks us off, from that matter. If a client comes up to you and asks for you to redesign their logo, you are going to critique it. You are going to talk about what works and what doesn't work in your opinions. This episode is meant to educate, challenge, and inspire. Nothing more and nothing less. We're not here to stir up shit or drama or cater to the negativity out there right now about logo critiques. Without listening to other people's perspectives, we can't grow as designers. Our job is to solve problems, whether it's design or in operations, and without understanding different viewpoints, we can't develop the critical thinking that's essential to our craft. So while we'll be honest and unfiltered, remember, this is all about pushing creative boundaries and having real conversations.
What's up, angry designers, or just designers across the world? So let me ask you a question. What is better than having one awesome guest on our show? Having not two, but three awesome guests visiting us from all over the flippin' world. So first, we have got one of the most beautiful people I have ever met. Down from New Zealand, we have the one and only Miss Kristy Campbell coming at us live late at night. So say hi.
Hello, guys. Hello. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock at night here, which is actually quite late for me. I'm like, oh, God, this is past my bedtime. Holy.
And then very close to her, just on the other side of the water there, just like you could almost surf to one another, we have one of the most handsome graphic designers online, Mr. James Barnard.
It's leisurely 7 p.m. here, but I've got a couple of beers going, so thanks for having me.
Nice.
Yeah,
And then-
I think I would have learnt to surf as well by now. I lived in Australia this time, but no.
And then traveling closer to this side of the world, coming from the UK, we have undoubtedly the best hair in the whole graphic
The
design
hair.
world.
Yes.
Mr. Will Paterson visiting us.
Yes, for the hair.
I'm so
He is
jealous
younger
of his
than us,
hair.
though. That's not fair.
It is an accident. I've had a hat to push this down because normally it comes like this, like curtains, but up. So
It looked
I
like
don't
an
want to do
episode.
anyone down. Yeah.
When he took it off, it was a slow motion
Yeah,
Vidal
it was- yeah, it
Sassoon
was
commercial,
exactly.
I swear.
It was-
He shook his hair out. And last but not least, coming from Canada, us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
5 in the morning, okay?
Yeah.
So our mission, of course, is we brought everybody together to try something that we've never done. And we brought all these amazing past guests together to do something that we want to call Design Dialogue. So the intent of what we're doing today, of course, is I thought that if we took the inspiration from yin and yang philosophy, right, where in good there's bad and where in bad there's good, right, we're going to try to apply this to our favorite and maybe not so favorite logos. We're going to each present a logo that you like and why you like it. And we're also going to present a logo that maybe we don't like as much. And we feel it may not stand up as well as some of the others, and why. And then what the rest of us are going to do is we're going to have the opportunity to try to poke holes in the good and find issues with it or challenges that we see. And then also find positives in the not so great logos that we have, and then we show up, and then with that we're gonna have great conversations, and I think we're just gonna have a whole bunch of fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Everybody's
Sounds
on
great.
Can we start by picking
I'm
the
ready
part of
to
the
go.
logo you used in this presentation? Boo.
Where's the
Is that
curve?
popping?
It's getting me right up.
Let's
It
go.
is poppins.
Put them up.
I saw it. I knew it.
Lay off the
Yeah, nice font
Poppins,
choice too.
Kristy Campbell's favorite.
I know, right? And we're stuck with it now. So, I mean, escaping from this, we're kind of toast. But before we start, let's go to the next screen. We are going to have some warm-up questions, all right? Just to kind of get everybody kind of, conversations going about logos and everything, right? So first, okay, warm-up question. Brand versus logo, okay? Which has a bigger impact? The brand on the logo or the logo on the brand? I'm going to shoot this one out to...
I have to think about what you
I know,
just
right?
said.
Well, Mr. James Barnard, you start first and the rest of us can figure.
I know what you want me to say, but I'm going to say logo.
No.
No, honestly, it's got to be the brand, doesn't it? A brand is so much more than a logo. It's everything from like your tone of voice to like how you're perceived in the world, what you say, what values you stand for. It's, your logo is a very, very small part of that. But I'm obviously biased being a logo designer. I wouldn't want to say logo, so it's the most important thing. I can charge more for that. But it's got to be the brand, doesn't it?
I completely agree with that. I have to say, there's that old, there's a reel that has been going around where if you put your finger over the logo, and if it's got a visual identity around it, you can recognize the brand. But if you, if it doesn't have a visual identity and you put your finger over the logo, it's not much.
That's an interesting point, because I did want to bring that, and that was almost the next question where we're headed to. What is actually more crucial than, in your opinion, to a company? The brand identity, which is different than the overall brand, or the logo itself? Because I did see your reel about this, Kristy.
Ooh. Will could answer this one if you want.
Well, I think lots of companies do well with bad logos, but with kind of good branding. So, unfortunately, you get a lot of shit logos, but like sometimes accidentally a good brand, or maybe they've just been consistent. It's like, I use the face analogy, or like the human analogy. The brand is like the entity, the person. It's kind of like the personality and everything that exudes off a person. And the sort of logo is the things they wear, or the face of them. You get really good people with great personalities that they may not like their face or whatever, or maybe they don't wear the same clothes as you. Maybe it's a bit different. But then you get people who have really beautiful faces, or really nice clothes or whatever, and they come across well, but their personality is like awful. Me. So in that way, I think that answers the question.
No,
that's awesome.
So you're saying that you feel that a strong brand is actually more likely to elevate what could be a mediocre or weak logo in that sense. So then if you had to prioritize, where do you think companies should invest more time and resources into developing the brand identity, or to first developing the logo itself?
Look, I would say like a lot of it does stem from a good logo, because actually saying that, like when you ask the questions to a client, like, what do you stand for? What's the backstory behind your company? What's the ethos behind your business? That's where I get a good logo idea from. So it kind of is important to ask those questions of a brand first and foremost. So at least they know who they are and how they want to be positioned in the world. And then the good design kind of can stem from that. But I use the logo as like the very start point of the visual identity and expand on it from there, because it's so kind of central to the brand itself. It's like the root element, even with logo design, when you're scaling something down to its tiniest, most reductive form, that symbol is like the starting point. It's like the genesis of the whole visual identity. And, I think that's probably why I call myself a logo designer, not a visual identity specialist.
Yeah, and I think as well with that, when if you were to have two options, if you start with a logo and then develop the identity around it, sure, that's possible. But if you start with a visual identity and then try to develop the logo, that could be a lot more challenging to create. But I mean, like, the best of both worlds would be to do it all at the same time. I actually kind of start with the logo a little bit, but then actually create everything else seamlessly at the same time, and then maybe adjust the logo a bit, adjust some of the visual branding. So it's all kind of cohesive.
Yeah.
So
I'd probably say the same thing.
So this is all well and fine when we're creating logos from scratch and companies from scratch, but what about then going the other way? What if a company comes to you and asks for a rebrand? Then at what point, which do you work on first, the logo enhancements, or slowly try to creep in the brand identity?
Well, for me, it's it depends on what they're trying to rebrand. So it really does depend on their sort of goals of where it's going. If, for instance, it's a hotel chain, for example, and they're rebranding because it's dated, that would, you would think instantly to layouts of things like menus and like the design system that you have, which can influence the logo, where the logo is placed in the actual print work or on adverts. It dictates a lot of the other aspects of the design. So if they were rebranding, you would have to ask the question of, is it just a simple logo redesign? Is it like you're happy, or are we all happy with the layouts of everything? Maybe it's in a modern, proportion of a layout. If it's not, then you would probably have to work in tandem with it. I don't think there's a time where we don't think about where the logo will be sat or be viewed when we create it. It's part of the functionality of it. So we have to, I think we already do a bit of branding, even though we may not be creating the assets for the brand during the design stage.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to like client embarrassment as well around the logo. It's usually the type of clients that I deal with are SMEs that have done very well without, like you said, Will, without a very good logo. But they've got to a point now where they're starting to want to attract customers, and it requires more trust in their brand. And having that crappy logo behind it just eradicates that trust immediately. So then they come to someone like us to rebrand and be no longer embarrassed by sharing their business card. I think that's a massive part of it as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting the types of clients I deal with. You ask them like, why are you rebranding? And most of the time it's like, we hate our old logo, it doesn't represent me well. We did it in clip art in Word and we were in a rush, and 10 years later we're still using the same thing. So it's basically just asking the question like, why are you doing this? And usually it's just, we just want to look more premium, we want to look more professional, we want to look more trustworthy, and we want to separate ourselves from the competition by doing this.
In line with this, then, do you think that a poorly executed rebrand could do more damage than keeping an old, shitty, outdated logo?
Yes, for sure. Because I also think there's a lot of trust in a logo, and like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily mean a logo has to be excellent and it has to be like the best logo you've ever seen in the world. If people recognize that and they trust it, it's like, why change that if everything else is pretty average? You could definitely adjust that, develop it, work on it. But although if a logo is not like perfect, but it still holds that recognition and that trust, like if you were to change everything, it would be quite dramatic. But if you were to change everything around the logo, people would still recognize that and hold that trust.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Sorry.
No, please. No, go.
A lot of it is like legacy as well. Like sometimes, a brand has evolved around this terrible design, and in that sense, it's so old and so used that they just can't let go. I've dealt with clients like that. Like recently, I was asked to attempt to rebrand a Las Vegas nightclub that had been around for 30 years, and given a very good budget to do it, did my best, and just in the end couldn't convince the CEO ultimately to change the design, and it was really disappointing from my side, but really interesting at the same time. Like there's so much feeling and passion around this quite, if I'm being honest, not great script, Mark. They just couldn't, they couldn't let go. And I found that really interesting. There's so much history behind it. Then they were so tied to it that it didn't matter whether, how good it looked or not. Everything else was tied to it. And, it wasn't about the visual element anymore. It was about the feeling behind the design. So it's really interesting.
That's why I say it's like a really nuance, isn't it? Because like what James said there, I watched that reel and I felt fear because we've had that before as well. Like we've had it a few times where we're like, it's like the dream job, if I get this and I put it out online or whatever, then it might lead to more jobs, and then it doesn't land well, and it really makes you second guess. Like, hang on a minute, I did everything from like by the book here. So I think like these questions, they're great to have answers to, and I'm not dissing anyone's answers. However, every time I hear one and I say one, I'm like, hang on a minute, but this, like, and this idea comes into my head where it just like totally eradicates what I'm thinking. So it's like there's always a yay or a nay to it, isn't it? So like there's a lot of feeling with bad logos. bad design, I think, is more noticeable. And if people have an attachment to that, sometimes leaving it or just maybe like cleaning it up might be the best thing. But it's difficult. You just don't know. Like, it's one of those things of, if someone says they know exactly what to do in this situation, I don't believe them. You know.
Yeah, interesting.
Sorry.
Did you, when you went down this road, James? Was it a completely brand new, fresh logo, or was it more of an evolution, taking a logo to the next level?
It was a refresh rather than a rebrand, I believe. I think it was just that they were having trouble with versatility with the script font. It was a very short name, 5-letter, name, and the D in it was very, very big. The secondary characters were very small, so at a small scale, it was impossible to read. They had all sorts of, treatment problems when they were printing it, and they printed it everywhere. It was on you name it, they had it printed. They even have a diamond crusted necklace with the D of the logo done.
Of course, it's Vegas.
So I was thinking while I was doing this project, like, man, this is going to be an expensive reprint. Like, when you have to do this 40-foot sign on the side of your building. Just envisioning the $100,000 that they were going to have to spend redoing everything. But that one was definitely like a refresh rather than a rebrand. It was basically to tweak the current thing to make it more versatile and to stand up and to hold up in today's world where it needs to work on a small scale and it needs to work in all these different formats. So that was more of a visual treatment rather than a kind of ethos change and a kind of restructure of their core values.
Yeah, updating a logo is becoming more and more tricky with all the different adaptations that we have to account for now versus, how it might have been 10, 20 years ago. Interestingly enough, we just did an episode on the oldest existing logos in the world. And, the oldest logo is, believe it or not, the Stella Artois logo, which goes back to like the 1300s, if you can believe that. And they've just kept adapting it to modern day times. But then you look at some of these other logos like Levi Strauss, nothing's changed. Like they're still using the horse, pulling apart the pair of jeans. So there's a lot tied to the history of a logo that makes it really, really difficult to just abandon and step into a new role. What are the challenges? What is it what's it going to take to help people get to that next level?
It probably really depends on, their overarching goal. Like, what is the whole purpose of the redesign of the logo, or where are you taking the business? Like, we currently are working on a project, and it's a awesome company. They had a logo, but they had no other visual identity. They've been around for a few years. We started creating some stuff, and then they actually did this expo, and they came back and they were like, everyone loved our logo. This was the logo that they've had for years. And then they were like, we feel like it's actually a mistake changing it at this point. But let's kind of switch our thinking and actually do some slight tweaks, but develop everything else around it. So essentially, everyone was just saying like how much they loved it. Like, why would you change something that's working? Because their goals essentially are the same as before. It wasn't necessarily to pivot in the company or to do something different or even a change of ownership. It was continue the way they were heading, but just strengthen the brand around it. And so that's what we're going to do now, is just strengthen that visual identity around it.
Yeah. Which in some ways actually, ensures longer term work, I would think, for us, as a designer and kind of being integrated within a brand and being within a company, there's a lot more potential to help grow that story versus, start the story and leave it to them to kind of finish off. You're all fantastic at growing business corporate ideas.
No comment.
Last but not least, the role of simplicity. So, when we did that episode and researched all these old logos, none of them were simple. They broke every single rule that we set out as what we think or what we deem is good design logo principles. So obviously rules can be broken, but is simplicity, in your opinion, better for a logo? And stripping it down to its simplest form. Where's that line, do you feel?
I think your former guest answered it best, Mr. Alan Peters. When he tackles a logo job, he takes a look at it and says, imagine redesigning this in 30 years' time to make it simpler. How can I reduce this logo down to make it work at its simplest form without treading on anybody else's toes and plagiarizing someone else's design? And it's so difficult. But then you have brands like Disney, who've used their logo for God knows how long, but they have variations that scale down. And I think there's the key. Like things like Stella Artois, yes, they do use the logo that they've used forever, but there's a variation that scales, and they've got something that I forget what they actually do with their bottles, but they have options to kind of use portions of that logo, and that's the key, isn't it? Creating variations that scale and to be used in different formats. As long as there's a core element that is still recognizable at a small scale, I think you're golden. Everything else from there just kind of depends on the size of the medium. It doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
I agree. I think, simplicity. I mean, it's a tricky one for me, simplicity, because it depends totally on the company. So I'll use another one of I like examples, like coffee shops. Yeah, you can have a simple logo for a coffee shop, and it could be, I don't know, a bean and a mug or something. And you might have like a few of those in your local town, but maybe you're going for a more 1930s vibe in the coffee shop, and you do it by time period. Maybe you want to add more complication to it, or more detail to it in that specific brand, because it segments them from the modern ones that we see. So that's like one way of going more detailed. And generally speaking, logo types are more detailed than, like, you can get away with it with logo types, as long as as long as James was saying, you have like a system around it. So there's like plenty of logos that are logo types that have a system of, like, they use the first letter, and it's so recognizable that even if you take off all the other letters, you can still see one.
Recognize it.
Yeah, and you still have that brand recognition in there. So the simplicity factor, it really does depend on where it's going to be seen and where you're mapping it. If it's going to be seen on an Apple Watch, it's got to be simple because of the pixel densities. If it's going to be like bloody etched into something, you've got to kind of make it simple, or you have to invert it in a certain way so it can be like stamped in to something. It's all these like variables of where it will be seen. However, the principle of it being simple is designed so people will remember it, and it's scientifically proven, isn't it, that the simpler something is with consistency, the easier it is to see, memorize, and like gain that recognition. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think a great example of that, sorry, Kristy.
No, you're right, go for it.
The ING logo, the bank, which is like quite a detailed illustration of a lion lying down in orange. And if you look at it, there's lots of, it works well in one color, but it's quite a detailed logo. On their app, all they do is just crop in tight to the face, and it's still the same brand. It's just a much smaller, simplified version of that. And I think that's the sweet spot, isn't it? When you can do that and like just put a little pinhole over the top of a logo and look at a tiny portion of it and still recognize it as the brand. They've really done their jobs well there, and it ticks all the boxes in terms of versatility for a logo. I think that's a great example.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I was actually gonna. One of my examples was going to be the Monster Energy logo. It was actually going to be the one that I liked. The reason being, I really love logos that are like full of personality and character. And that is, I can see James looking it up. That's like the perfect example. If you look at the type on that logo is so, I don't even know like the meanings behind it really, but it's so like intricate and detailed and like out there and bold. And I think that's the perfect example of, I mean, you could still break it down and could somewhat be simple with the claws, but
have you seen that video where that lady tears this logo to shreds and says that it's to do with Satan and the devil? She breaks apart about why everything in this logo is tied in with. You should watch it. It's too much to explain now, but she has a piece of paper with a logo on it and just breaks down that this is a satanic logo and it shouldn't be out here in the world.
I mean, hey, but like, yeah, these are a good example of how, like, I do think sometimes simplicity can potentially, again, it depends on your goals. What are the goals? What is the personality you're trying to portray? Yeah. If you can show that in certain ways through the logo, like the Monster Energy logo, that is the perfect example of having like a bit more raw, rugged feeling. It's not simple.
It seems like we all agree on the whole premise that simplicity is important for adaptation. However, the characteristic, going simplistic for the sake of simplicity to, has the potential to lose the characteristics that have made the logo, the brand, what it is. With that being said, why do you think so many brands have just oversimplified. And, you know, like we're talking some huge companies have just come down to just a word and not even a fancy word mark. We're talking, they're simpling down to just letters. Like, and these are giant brands, right? Yves Saint Laurent, like some of the luxury brands, but even some of the technology companies. What are they just losing sight?
I don't know. Bloomberg coined this phenomenon that's happening. They call it debranding, right? So
Yes.
people are like stripping, like the Pringles guy, for instance,
Yeah.
is now just like a black and white vector representation of that face. It's so stripped down, it's kind of lost all of its,
Personality.
yeah, exactly
Yes.
right. So there's a line to it, isn't there?
Yes.
How far do you go before your brand no longer has that personality? And we're moving so far. You know, this was skeuomorphism into flat design. 10 years ago is what everyone was talking about on web. Taking everything from looking realistic into just flat layouts. And the same happens with logos as well. I guess just again the versatility factor. People are having to adapt to smaller screens. They need their logo to work in an app icon or on a tiny little mobile website, and that's unfortunately the way to do it sometimes. But there's definitely a line you can't cross when it comes to mascot-based logos and things with personality and funny faces and cuteness. You've got to be really careful.
Yeah.
I was just going to give an example of Huel. That's like a really interesting anti-brand brand. So just the word Huel, like Helvetica, I believe. All over the brand, it is essentially just the logo type that is just says the word Huel and maybe is being kerned a little bit. And we see this sort of logo everywhere. And the design language is the logo. It's not the actual word Huel. It's the colours surrounding it and the brand.
Yes.
In ultra simplicity, giving the idea of being modern. I think this is more of like a utilitarian idea, and companies now, for like Pringles, as you say, they have stripped the design, and I wouldn't say it's like a good thing to do. However, their mindset could be that if you're going to get someone to see it from further away in a shop or a grocery store, it'll be easier to spot. You can get flatter, more bolder colours on it. The more detail on a product, the less clean it looks. This is sort of all the stereotypical things that brand people think of. But yeah, as James says, it's definitely a line. But it's interesting to look at things like Huel and see how companies from the get-go just essentially do white label branding, where the product itself is essentially the logo. You walk past a Huel bottle, it's Huel. Whether it's like the jug or whatever, you see the bag, everything there is the logo. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Product recognition. There's another great example of this is Tropicana, who have such a
great
recognizable
example.
carton on their shelf, and it's very detailed orange sort of layout with the leaves underneath it. And they changed their design of their carton to something much more stripped down and simplified, and they lost millions. Like the recognition on the shelf that no one could spot their drink anymore, so they just skip past it. So recognition, that's obviously a massive part in this, especially with established brands. Is like if you move too far away from it, your product is no longer recognizable to your customers, and that's a huge faux pas.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of does bring back the whole conversation about, is the brand identity more important than the logo itself? And by brand identity, I mean all the extra assets that, all three of you are fantastic at doing. You're showing us great logos, but I love your setups, your mock-ups thereafter, showing it in use, the patterns. There's something to be said about, exactly situations like this where people tie more of the brand into the identity versus, the logo is just the beacon to bring that feeling of the brand through, I guess.
An example that I'm thinking of that maybe does do this, where the logo is so prominent, more prominent than the brand, is Prime. And I mean, it's the positioning of it and the color as well. But if that logo is just so, exactly what it is. So I think that's a good example of they don't even really have anything else around that. It's just a color.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it just impact font turned on its side?
Yeah.
Isn't it just, Sean,
that's simplicity at its finest.
That's my jam.
right. Well, with that being said, let's. I think this is a great conversation. I think we're warmed up for this. I want to start bringing in some of these logos because I want to be sensitive to all your time. We have the whole day ahead of us, but poor Kristy's staying up late. Yeah, she's going to be dreaming about logos tonight. So shall we warm up?
I will be.
So the very, very first logo design that we're going to show off is James's positive logo, something that you like and you bring to the table, and that is
Nintendo 64.
Oh.
Now, this design is, I absolutely adore this design. It probably breaks a few rules of logo design. It doesn't work well in one color. The colors are so contrasting and kind of horrible, and they sort of really scream at you. But this logo is more the way it makes me feel than the actual visual.
Oh, I like
so
that.
we were talking about a brand and like how a brand isn't your logo. But the thing is with N64 is like this came up on the screen when you turned the machine on, and it was that feeling of, I'm about to have fun. This is like an escape for me now. And so it's just like as a, an emblem for a business. It's so chunky and it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's so kind of reductive.
Old.
Like all it is just an extruded N patterned in, this repeating patterns. And when it spins, it also works as well and changes color. That sat on a black background on a t-shirt. It's just like, I used to play N64 too. It's such a unifying thing. It just makes me feel brilliant. And it's not really the design. It's just the association I have with this logo. That is why I love it so much.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, that's we've clearly, I guess brought that up. That's probably the most important part in loving or hating a logo is the feeling that it gives to you. I love everything about the N64 logo, the experience, the brand. If I was to take a step, and you're right, this breaks so many rules. Heaven forbid if you were colorblind. I don't even know what this would look like.
No.
Before accessibility.
The challenge I have, not with this logo in particular, but I love the extruded, I love the 3D, I love the angle, but I've never been able, and this is proof, I've never been able to put flat type against a 3D type logo and make the two look like they belong to the same logo. And just like this, the N64, when I see the N64, I don't even think of the word mark on top. I just think of the mark itself. But that's a challenge that I've always had in general. And again, this doesn't seem to solve it in my opinion either, let alone
the optical balance of the superscript 64 on the Nintendo. They've crammed in the registered trademark under it's like a slightly too low underneath the overshoot of the O. And is it balanced left and right optically? Maybe, I'm not really sure, but it feels weighted to the left.
Yeah.
There's all sorts wrong with it, and I totally agree. It's got problems, but it's an association thing, and it's a feeling rather than stripping this one apart for how shit it looks in the design sense.
I have to say it's an unusual when I look at this, and it's such an unusual choice to put the word mark on the top. It just feels really odd. But in a funny way, that does really make them stand out as well.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I don't think it's centered.
Yeah, but it was either.
It's clearly not. Yeah.
The N needs just a little.
Yeah.
Nudge over.
But
Right.
I shouldn't be saying that because I do love the actual the logo itself. Again, it's one of those things when you're forced to look at it when you're younger. Before you know all the rules surrounding logos, it's one of those things where you just love it, but at the same time, nostalgia does bring the sort of feeling of comfort of back in the day sort of thing. Yeah. The logo itself, I think, is cleverly done.
Yes.
Just from a brand perspective, back in the day, if we take what we didn't know and what we probably did know back then, they're trying to show something bright, vibrant, trying to show a bit of technology, but also playfulness. So I think it hits the nail on the head.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it's symbolism on such a great scale because the N64 was traditionally moving away from 2D into 3D. Right. So this is Nintendo entering the world of roaming and GoldenEye and all of these, Mario 64 is the first one where you went into a third plane and you moved away from the platform style game. And I think this is what they were trying to do with this, is this that we're in 3D now. So is our logo.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as well back then for the colours to print it off. They're in very basic colours aside from green and stuff. it makes sense for the print. I think PlayStation did something similar as well, like when they were trying to show off the 3D elements for the like PlayStation, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. The symbolism's there.
To your point about PlayStation, they didn't succeed like this, did they? Unfortunately. I have both systems. This is iconic. I've had, in my hands 3D versions of this N. I also have the PlayStation version. Not so exciting. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we all love this, but let's see what maybe doesn't have as much love, and that is
Wikipedia.
Bump, bump.
That's a good one.
Please, sir, give us.
Well, do I need to say anything about
What's wrong with that? Yeah.
I mean, try printing that in one color. I mean, I guess in grayscale you get away with it. I'm sure that's what they do. But I mean, I need to check actually. Do they use that on the favicon of their website, or is it the W? Because I think they do have like a stripped down version of that. Yeah, they use the W as the favicon on their design. So they do have, like we were saying before, they have a scalable variation, but my God, this one just
the Wikipedia logo.
It kind of makes sense though. Like when you look at it, I know it's definitely not printable in that way, in like a one color print, but like it makes sense. The Earth, the sphere. It feels like timeless. It feels very like historical. Yeah.
Do you know that it's that because you just used Wikipedia so much in your life that you know that it is a sphere? Because if I'm looking at the website and the logo that they use in the nav, it is shrunken down into a very, very small. It's like 75 pixels high. It's illegible. It's a mulch of like a weird sort of shape, like a kind of.
I remember when this logo came out. I do, and I remember like when I saw it for the first time, it was very topical for back then. Like this was kind of this is 12, 15, almost 20 years ago as they evolved it to this, but then they stopped evolving it. Right. And I think that's what the software is. Like, I mean, the story behind the Wikipedia logo is, of course, every one of those puzzle pieces putting together, to represent, knowledge and encyclopedias, every one of those characters are different languages. And apparently somewhere in here is the actual word Wikipedia spelt out. Like, there's so much to this logo. They're expecting way too much from the logo. I mean, and I think this is what happens when you have maybe engineers, like dictating what a logo design should be versus designers, because they're expecting it to do so much, and I think that's the challenge for it.
It's the perfect example of fitting all this information into one design. So the idea is there and it looks amazing. Yeah. However, the execution of it could do with some work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can I tell you what I believe happened with this logo is that it was a contest that they put out to people in order to to brand this thing, and it was the original contest winner did a variation something like this where it was a sphere with puzzle pieces, and then a designer took that on and then using that as a concept came up with something very similar to this, and then over the years it got a little bit simplified and a little bit more refined. But yeah, it could be a too many cooks situation going on here, that they've taken on something, someone else has tried to take what was provided and make it better, and this is where they ended up. And I think the concept behind it is lovely, and it's a nice metaphor executed.
Yes. If I didn't know it was Wikipedia, maybe it's the whole, we talk about the importance of a brand. I'm constantly getting Wikipedia saying, hey, donate. And then I see this logo and it kind of makes me feel like they're struggling financially because the logo is extremely outdated and could use some work, although the sentiment might be great. But between that and then this whole idea of donate on a regular basis, it's kind of making me feel like the company's in a state of flux, which it's not. Apparently, financially, they're doing great. And I think one of the C-suite actually went on record saying, people always ask me if we're okay and if we're struggling for money. This doesn't necessarily make them feel like that they're coasting and very good.
That's a really interesting point about non-profits and their brands. Okay, so if their brand is so polished and so clean, they're then perceived to be doing really well and trustworthy and premium, they're less likely to get donations. Did you ever see that guy who redesigned homeless signs for people and would go out, take what they put on their homeless sign, like please donate money or whatever. He would go home and paint them a beautiful one and then fold it so that they could package it away and give it to them to use in the street. And donate. You know, people stop giving them money because their sign was too nice. You know, like if they have like a scrolled on version in a marker, it says I'm in help. I need help here. But when something is actually designed very well and clearly someone spent money on it, maybe it says to a customer they're doing okay, that they really need my money, and so it's a different kettle of fish.
It's like a hidden
That's
meaning.
a perfect example.
Yeah.
I was just saying, there's a funny one. Have you seen that meme or that picture on Reddit where it says, "I will always find you" in a nice font, and then one next to it is, "I will always find you." It's a perfect example of the psychology behind it. Yeah, as in, you can make it look premium or not based on that. Yeah.
So true.
Well, if I have to leave on a positive note with this, skeuomorphism seems to be coming back. So this will, this will look very in style again very soon. So they should just hold out
Trendy
a little
logo.
longer.
We love trends in logos, don't we?
It's the best.
Oh no.
All right. Next, we have our friend Kristy to present.
Here we
So,
go.
Kristy, the logo that you love for today is Chupa Chup.
I'm excited about this one.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I mean, like, as soon I was thinking about this and I was thinking about what to say, like, if you strip away the word Chupa Chubs, you would 100% know what that is, which I love. I think you could even go as far as potentially just having the yellow daisy and not having like the red and the gold even, and still recognizing it. It's just, again, it's like the nostalgia you have with that logo. It feels happy, it feels exciting, it feels like you're going to get a little treat. And when you think about this logo, if you look at the history of the logos, it's really carried its way, it's like all the way through. I actually don't know what year Chupa Chups were founded, but the very first logo had this vintage style typography, which they've obviously developed, but it's carried that same idea. And then Salvador Dali, the designer, he designed it in 1969, the first sort of revision of the Daisy
really?
logo.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's
shit.
that's been around for what is that? Just over 40 years.
What?
My math.
Salvador Dali did the Chupa Chups logo.
Yes, Salvador Dali. He redesigned it.
I'm looking that up. I don't trust
This
you,
is
Kristy.
what
I'm looking
I've-
that up.
Salvador
Oh my
Dali.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he did.
And apparently he did it like in an hour. It just came to him. Classic. All good ideas do.
Fuck that guy. God damn it.
Screw him.
Honestly. I see. Oh, God.
Wow.
And he thought about the positioning of this logo because he was the one who put it on the top of the lollipop and not the side. Again, genius.
Yeah, that is actually brilliant for a separating factor. And I mean, everybody has this. How is it resized though? Like, what are they doing when they have to put it down on a favicon or something silly?
I actually
I bet
tried.
you it's just the crest. I bet you it's just the outside bubble shape.
I was really
I don't know
looking
that.
for like the whole logo family, or even if they had it in more of a horizontal style, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Like, this was pretty much it. So that is the only negative that I was sort of finding. I don't know if James is getting onto the
I'm
favicon.
Googling
What is
brand
it?
guidelines for
See if
Chupa
you
Chups
can
right
find
now.
The favicon
I
is the
struggle.
whole logo.
It is.
Pretty
isn't
much.
it?
Really?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is it.
And it's as square as you can get in that sense. I mean, if you're looking at it, it's just as wide as it is tall. So
Yeah.
I just love this.
Versatile.
That's nice.
The
Do
type.
you know what? One thing that I'm getting from this logo, and this is Google Fonts' problem, it's all their fault, is this font is now looking like lobster.
Upstairs.
On Google Fonts now. And that might be, me and my wife have a game, and whenever we see lobster out in public, I go, what font is that? She goes, is it lobster? I'm like, yeah. Because it's everywhere now. And
everywhere.
I'm
Comic
getting
Sans.
lobster vibes from this Chupa Chups. Like,
Don't tell me that. Not the
I've ruined it for you.
Better than wisdom script.
Yeah, it's lobster italics.
Hey, it's hard to find a good script.
So I find it interesting that they have a little bit of a halo effect here on the outside of the logo, if you notice, and it's I can't figure out why. I mean, that can't reproduce well, on a small format and digitally.
I wondered that too.
The
and
white
I looked,
background.
Yeah, and I looked back at the other variations of the logo, and he started it with just it was more gold, but it was just the one vector shape.
Yes.
And it was an interesting choice adding the 3 layers
Yes.
because, like you said, it just doesn't scale very well.
Yeah. No. Interesting. But I mean,
pretty
again,
awesome.
it's an awesome logo and it's memorable. I think everybody recognizes that one. So
Good one.
good job, good job.
Yeah.
All right,
like
now
it. I'm ready
on
for
to
my next one.
Your more challenged logo.
The London Olympics.
Yes.
Yes.
God.
How much was spent on this one?
Oh
This
my
is what
God.
it's
Oh, it was so much money.
A London Olympics logo, right?
Honestly,
So dirty.
when I was researching this, I really like, as soon as I saw it, I just remember these feelings of multiple different things. And I remember thinking, what is it? Again, there's always a reason for something. And I did my research. I tried to figure out what it was. My best sort of facts that I could find was the purpose of it was supposed to be populated. So all of those shapes were supposed to have images within them. So that could showcase like quite a
The
few
system.
different... Yeah. But like people said some interesting things, like with the Olympics, it's all about people coming together and togetherness, and this couldn't be more far from that.
Far apart,
I mean, I guess
yeah.
they're together, but they're just...
They don't fit.
It
They
looks
don't
You know,
fit.
some people have said that it looks like Lisa Simpson giving
Yes,
a blowjob.
yes.
Yes.
I didn't want to go
Dirty.
dirty on that, but yeah.
$625,000 later, and your logo looks like Lisa
And
Simpson.
this wasn't even, this was like a consultancy firm. It wasn't a specific designer. So this is what happens when you have design by committee.
But it's
Yeah.
funny because, like, this, in a weird way, that's what made me remember it. So I'm like, is that a success? I don't know.
Well,
I remember
I don't think-
it, that's
you
for
know-
sure.
Overall, I find most of the Olympic logos are really poorly designed.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, this not just this one. We were just talking about the Rio logo here last week. You know, going back, and it's like, you know, even the new Olympics with Paris. I think that, you know, as unique as that one is, you know, and it's shocking that it's an Olympic logo. I think it might be the top, even though it's not fantastic. I like the idea behind it.
Yeah.
Something about the Olympic logos where, you know, they got it right in mid-century.
The
I don't know
only
what
the
happened.
only real good one was the 2020 Tokyo. Did you see that with the twos?
They got in
and the
hot
zero?
water with that.
Did
'Cause
they?
The original version
yes.
of that, it had to be changed because someone got in trouble for plagiarizing someone on the original one.
okay.
So the one that I ended up with was the redesign. But yeah, there's all sorts of, you know, when the globe is going to see this design, how much pressure can you have as
Right.
an agency?
Yes.
Unreal.
I think, just so we're aware, there's an actual like guidelines for creating them of what needs to be put in these logos and how they're like designed, essentially.
Okay.
I remember doing some research a while back because I was going to make a video of me redesigning it, and I was like, this isn't happening. 'Cause, like, it doesn't matter what
Pressure.
you do, like, you'll just get loads of hate for it. But I have to find it, but there is a document that basically says what you can and can't have, like what it needs to show, like diversity, has to show like all these colors and stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably why. And as designers, we try and go like out of the comfort zone a little bit, maybe break it, and that's probably why all the rest of the logos, bar the 2012 and the Paris one, looks kind of similar in a way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the guidelines then say just make them as confusing as hell. Is that it? 'Cause I can't imagine guidelines helping me create this.
It wasn't
like a
just this
building
logo
being
that was
broken.
bad though. It was the typeface they put with it. Like
yeah.
they came up with this angular typeface to try and
Yeah.
mirror the angles of the logo, and it was so legible, and the kerning is off, and like, it's just really not good. I was in London when the Olympics were on, and I still have my tickets with this logo on it, and most of them are in like pink and yellow as well, and it's just so brash.
Yeah.
You know, they really flopped with this one.
Ooh,
So,
yeah.
good
Yeah,
good
they
shout,
did.
Kristy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent choice.
Yeah, I all I can say, if I can leave with it on a positive note here, is that it really makes me feel like the Memphis, you know, movement, 80s, 90s, and that's slowly coming back. So again, it seems to be doing a full circle, but that's about it on this one. So.
Definitely recognizable.
That's
Well
it.
done.
Yeah.
Good brand.
Memorable for all the wrong reasons.
All right, next we have our buddy Will. All right, so your logo that you like, Will, is...
Here we go.
Kellogg's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was
This is
so
like-
blown away
it's
when you sent
beautiful.
this.
Wow.
It is like my favorite one of all time, and it's the one that I have on every single mood board, which I don't know if that's like
Love it.
something that should be the case. Yeah, so it's a signature logo. I'm more interested not just on the actual design and how clean it is. It's interesting because of the history behind it, and also the history behind some of these older brands. They're all from like William Kellogg, who did a signature as part of like a stamp of approval on the products to be a bit more personable, and it sort of evolved over the years back into this. It started to become a bit, you know, like a normal serif logo type, but this, it just screams authenticity, like it's still alive, like it's an actual a very small business, which is what I love. It's not like overly like detailed or anything, however, but it's simple in itself, and that K just screams out. You see it everywhere. You get rid of the rest of the letters, the K is just screaming at you that it's Kellogg's, and just the way that it's all, nothing is like copied and pasted over. Normally, aside from the G, but normally you would like copy and paste letters over to like give some sort of consistency to the design. But this one just like slots in so nicely everywhere, and it's readable, legible. Everyone knows what it is. It looks friendly. I love it.
Yes.
I think with graphic designers as well, Dave Hopkins from the Print Design Academy asked me a question the other day, and it was like, what's your first recollection of being immersed with graphic design or seeing like packaging? And it's the breakfast cereal, sitting at the breakfast table, reading the puzzle on the back of the seal. So for graphic designers, this is like you're going right back to your roots here. And it's beautiful. If I had one critique of this variation in particular, why have they put that separation in the K, the leg of the K and the stem? Like, did they really need to do that? Everything else is so flowing and connected, and they haven't separated like the front and the back of the L's. Like, why is there a little line between halfway through the middle of the K there?
I'm not sure. Like, I think with logo types, they're really strange because you treat them slightly different, don't you? Especially if you're like customizing it with your hand. Sometimes it is just a case of like balancing it. So maybe the L bit coming up where it connects, that might have confused the O, because the O isn't like fully rounded, is it? It's not like normally with a script O you would go all the way around. It could be that, or it could be just inspired by the original signature. Like Boots is an example of when they were inspired, but they heavily messed with the logo, the actual brand Boots. But that could be a reason why. I don't know. That's a good point though.
I would love to see the K just overall, like, a tiny bit bigger, because it's such almost like how Disney approaches the D. This K is just as recognizable now. It is the mark for this brand. And with that, but right now it fits perfectly here. But it has become so. It's so prominent. It's so big. It's what everybody remembers is that K with the funny little separation. Yeah, all right.
That's awesome.
Well, I think everybody loves this one. So
it's beautiful.
Now, interestingly enough, you also did present the Olympics logo as your first choice, Kristy. I know, right? I had to say no. I was like, sorry, man.
It's so bad.
Do that one.
I can't believe I picked it out of all the logos in the world.
Yeah, right.
But your second choice is actually interesting, Will, and that is...
It's controversial, yeah.
Airbnb logo.
Plagiarized Airbnb logo.
Yes. Yeah. That's where my head goes immediately. It's plagiarized. But Will, your points.
It's phallic. First of all, just bring it out there.
That's why
I don't anything that looks like boobs or bums or balls. You kind of have to go, hang on a minute, this is a big brand, let's not make it look any different. I love the idea behind it, of like on their website, the people who created it, the actual idea of them making it, Airbnb, they did the whole, what was it, like home plus coordinates plus like a
is that what it is?
Thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, but that is a perfect reason why that system of like just mashing things together doesn't always work, because you end up with that, which is, I'm not saying it's a terrible design. It just looks like a penis on balls. So like
it's so all over the place.
It doesn't make sense. It's lined as well, which doesn't go with the type.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. The type looks like it's been slung next to it, doesn't it? Like
and they need to get that B. The ball of the B, they need to just squidge that in a little bit, because it's very unbalanced there. But that was me nitpicking, and I could be completely wrong. So yeah,
yeah. Why don't you're wrong? It feels like it's still pretty. It's also feels really detached to that mark. It feels like it needs to be a little closer, brought in a little bit more.
My wife said it's like a cycle tracker app because of the color. So like that's a weird thing. I mean,
so funny.
Oh,
I thought you meant cycling, like biking.
that's what I thought too.
no, yeah,
And then I got it, and I was like, it does.
Right.
yeah. It's like
That's-
pink.
It's the white
Yeah.
and the reddy pink.
Right.
That does look like a
Stunning.
Volvo as well, doesn't it?
It looks like all sorts. That. So it's a great. I think the execution is another example of the execution, right? Is in the actual ideas behind it is brilliant, but this is where it becomes like, make sure you check your design after so that it's not plagiarized, and also. If it looks like balls, then it's probably
There's the old, I coined this a few years ago, it's called the DAST, the Dick and Swastika test. If you take your design, try and make a penis out of it. If it looks like a dick or a swastika, you've done something wrong. So you flip it upside down, mirror it, rotate it, cover off portions of it to see if there's anywhere in there. And honestly, I'm working on a logo design today that has a cross in the middle of it and bits sticking off it. And I'm like, there's a hate symbol in there somewhere.
Happen. Yeah,
I'm going to redo this. Like, it's a tricky one.
Amazing.
Oh,
That-
is great.
That happened to us recently as well. We did a rebrand for it's actually launching soon, and it was probably one of my favorite rebrands we've done.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were so happy. They were like ecstatic with the branding. They came back a couple of months later and they were like, look, there's just one thing, and they sent through this one illustration. It wasn't actually with the logo, and it was of this sort of little guy, but he looks like a dick, like just straight up. And I can't believe we didn't see it. I was like, and the guys were so chill about it. They're like, oh, don't worry, just like take his beanie off. He was wearing a beanie, and oh god, I was like, they were laughing, so that was fine. Can't believe we didn't see it.
Amazing. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Will. This was amazing.
It's
Actually,
great.
this was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right, now on to Mr. Sean.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
So your love.
Go.
1970s CBC logo.
I am so glad I'm on the nostalgia theme here, because this is exactly, I grew up with this logo. It's the CBC logo, our national broadcaster. It was designed by Burton Kramer, a fellow Canadian guy, and it's, as you can see, it's got the C in the middle there, which is Canada, obviously, and then it's called the what did they call it? The pizza. It's like a pizza. It's got the nickname, but anyway, it's the C in the middle, and then it kind of represents the radio broadcasts going out to Canada and the world.
Radio waves.
Yes, the radio waves. Yeah, basic. So, but again, this is a logo I grew up with watching hockey when I was a kid and stuff like that. You see the CBC logo, and it was like just brings me back to a really awesome place back in the old days. Yeah.
It's definitely nostalgic.
It's very
There's no
nostalgic,
question.
yes, and you can
There's no
tell
question.
it's pretty dated. I think right now, like
Am I bad for not? I've never seen
No,
this before.
I've never seen it either, and
Oh, okay.
that's probably
Same.
and that's just where you are in the world. Kind
geographic
You
of
might
thing.
recognize
to see this fresh,
the new one.
yeah.
Right?
Right.
The new version, or the most recent one, is equally, well, it's beautiful in my opinion. It's one of my favorite logos of all time.
It's
The new
simplified.
one, they've simplified it.
Yeah.
Right? That one is a little bit more recognizable, where this one is definitely nostalgic.
yes, the new one, the beef that I have with the new one is they've taken the C out of the middle,
Yes.
which I don't like. I love that C in there. I just think that looks that's just so.
They're very true
kick-ass.
to it, though, weren't they? Looking at it now, they were very true to the original, and they actually, again, like a refresh rather than a rebrand, and they've stuck with the core elements of the logo and
Yeah.
simplified it down. Because that's looking at this, having never seen this before, that was one thing I was going to say. Is there's a lot of detail going on there. Like
There is a lot.
Take
Yes.
a layer out of that, and that's exactly what they did with the.
And that is it. They did, and that's why I think now the new one is recognizable. It's used everywhere. It's but I understand what you mean about
It's-
the nostalgic. You look at this and you think back to
back to your
Amazing.
the old days, Mr. Dress Up and all that stuff.
God, yeah, Canadian
I think-
shows that
Yeah.
you would have no idea
Yeah.
about.
What I would I feel like with this logo, I mean, I don't know the brand at all, but I could imagine how great this would be to break down and then use as visual assets, across marketing collateral.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can
as well.
picture that. Like that would look really beautiful,
Yes.
especially with those colors as well.
Yeah. On TV, they used to do it like a kaleidoscope kind of effect, which was kind of cool too. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
I love it.
Do you want to show them the logo that you hate now?
Yeah. Okay. This is one that.
American Airline.
Ooh.
Yes.
Gradients.
The gradients, exactly.
They really went gradient heavy on this one. So this is the new American.
The new
Airlines
American
logo.
Airlines. Yes.
So what's your beef with this,
The
Sean?
Well, it's kind of it's going the opposite way because we're big fans of Massimo Vignelli's version of that 2 A's and then the graphic kind of bird up at the top,
middle,
right, which
yes.
was beautiful. And then you go in here and, like you said, gradients. Just
They took away the
simplicity and the beauty of the original
of
and
what
just
he
kind of-
had, and now this almost feels like
And it's
they jumped in on those gradients. They added the bird there in the middle.
Yeah,
they
and
almost followed a trend on this
and
one.
going with the wing, it almost looks like it was just, hey, let's design this and put it on an airplane, but not thinking about wherever else it could go.
So did they use this as like the standalone logo mark? This like again, I guess like a forward, like backslash.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what
I think
the
it's the
heck?
tail wing.
The
of
tail wing,
plane
that's what it's
supposed
yeah.
to be.
But that's like
Yeah.
they use that in the favicon and everything in there. On their
Yeah.
website.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 It looks like a bird. Yeah, I know it's supposed to look like a bit of a bird and a wing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
what's
the original
drop
logo,
shadow?
isn't it? 'Cause it crosses
It works
the-
surprisingly well on their website, I will say. It's one of those things that works surprisingly well. However, I think if you look at the masthead on their website, they've still got TM next to it, and it's really small, so it looks like a bit
Like a
dust.
dust.
Yeah, I'm trying to
wipe
write.
my screen. Yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
It was sad how it got to here.
Exactly,
And it didn't
yes.
feel like an evolution of the old
It
logo
did not,
and
yes.
of an old logo master.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's kind
One
of
of the greats,
And
yeah.
now it just kind of melded into the rest of this whole genre of logos, I
Yeah,
think.
and you could look at Vignelli's version, and it's still current today. Like it still works. It's got it's a beautiful look. But this one, nah. Not so
It's interesting. On their website, they've got like their logo paired up next to the Qantas logo, which is in a very similar orientation, like the tail wing of the plane. And
Right.
the Qantas logo is dominating over their own logo on the website because it's slightly thicker and it's slightly more bold. But I can see it in the favicon now, and it just it doesn't work. It's slightly, it looks off center because of the kind of the cut into the center of the
Exactly.
design, and it looks
And
like
it's
a weird
very
shape.
weighted to the bottom. It's not weighted to the top. The red is
Yeah.
more bold than the blue. It's bigger. It's bolder. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of it feels it's
It's a weird idea.
Yeah,
it is.
The-
Yeah.
It's a weird idea I've got. If you were to make it any better, do you reckon people would still find it safer to fly, like as a brand? Because sometimes if you create, you hit the NHS logo, it is just the word NHS in a blue box and whatnot. If you were to make that any like more fun or better or improve it in any way, does it look like? Will it affect people's psychological
interesting.
views of that? I don't know the answer, but I thought it'd be an interesting thing to put out there.
I think planes is one of those things that I want to feel like they put money towards making it feel like it's more
Safe.
they've invested, not like me a cheaper version, unlike the signs.
Yeah.
But I see what you
Yeah.
mean. I see what you mean. Like where could that just that font though in that logo? It's just that feels like it's just
was
disconnected.
Yeah.
This, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All
It's a
right.
goodie.
Yeah.
And last but not least, so the logo that I like is
Kia.
Get the
Controversial.
fuck out of
Yeah,
here.
this is controversial.
I agree with you.
the Kia logo.
The Kun cards.
I like this. I am here for this
I do
logo.
as well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I
okay,
do.
hear me out. So
I have a Kia. Kias are great.
okay, the old Kia logo. Not only was it dated, it didn't keep up with the quality of the cars. Like the quality of the cars way back 20 years ago, it was a budget-friendly car, and they cut corners everywhere on this on the car itself. So over the years, the car has evolved. And again, I do not drive a Kia, but I recognize how the technology evolved. But the old logo was so atrocious, believe it or not, people were buying knockoff third version, like their own versions of a Kia logo and slapping it on the car. So, they were so due for a logo here. Now, with their whole new motion, with their whole new rhythm, this font, or whatever this mark was, I think hit the brand on the head, even though it's completely illegible. And in no way do I think that,
This is your favorite logo. It's illegible from the start and confusing millions of people as a brand.
But because it's so good, that's why it's confusing. People are actually going, what is this KN car brand?
Do you think they did this on purpose? You think they made an illegible logo on purpose?
Well, I do. I think because, again, number one, most of the car, Toyota, that whole 3 swooshes for the Toyota brand, and you look at half the other car brands out, they don't make sense. So it didn't have to make sense. It just had to elevate the brand on the badge, in my opinion, which I think that they brought up the level of quality now of the brand in order to match the quality of the car, in my opinion. But I knew it would be controversial.
Yeah, wow.
Call me on this one.
You're trolling.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Look, oh man, alive. How many searches per year now? Is it like people Googling KN car because they can't read this design? I get what you're saying about yes, it is more premium, and they definitely needed a rebrand to move away from this. But I don't know if they actually. I remember seeing this logo for the first time. They sponsored a tennis tournament, and it was on the backdrop, and it's it's quite a landscape logo. It looks
yes, it
nice
is
and striking on the back of the sponsored banner behind the tennis players, and I was like, what is that? And then it wasn't until I think the end of the match where they said something like sponsored by Kia, and I was like.
That's Kia. That's how.
And I went on Google and found. I was like, "You have got to be kidding me!" I couldn't believe. It's just there's abstract and then there's illegible, right? They've gone too far with this, in my opinion. It does look stylish. For anything else, it might have worked, but I just think they went too far with it and went past the point.
I think there's one change that you could make to make it more legible and better for everyone, and it's to add the crossbar of the A to the bottom.
But that's just heartbreaking. I see people trying to do that.
If you do it right, and you maybe, I don't know, fix some of the inconsistencies, because if you notice the lines, they've gone into this weird serif. It looks like it's been, you take a font and you transform it and you mess around with it. It looks like that. I kind of like the new logo, maybe because it's just new, but I do want to just add a little crossbar to the A going to the left, not all the way.
So I see people doing the crossbar, and it completely goes against. I feel it ruins. Granted, some people might think it already is a ruined logo, but I feel that crossbar, by adding it, it's like, well, duh, from a design standpoint.
I wonder if
I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I wonder Sorry, you go, James.
Go ahead.
Who's going to go? Shit. I'll go.
Kristy.
I wonder with the K, if that little leg of the K that's sticking downwards, if you mirrored that and made that the sort of strike through of the A, I don't know if that would look like an A.
Just bump it over the leg, the arm of the K, just so it nudges into it a little bit, so there's a little dent into the. But then you're losing legibility altogether. If you're going to do something with this, just make it completely abstract and remove all legibility from it, and take the leg of the K away and make it the zigzag shape that kind of represents it. Because then at least it would be, I guess still have the meaning, but it's just to try and make the letters work and then not make it work. They've forced it, and it doesn't hold up anymore. Go one way or the other. Go logo mark plus type, or
why is some bits sharp and some bits round?
It is. Well, again, I think they were trying to replicate the hand lettering aspect.
So I'm messing around with it now just because I want to.
You're an illustrator, Will.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
I am. Yeah,
I want to see it.
Okay, hold on.
I'll send a screenshot.
Share yours. Shares.
I see what you've done there.
No, so I've just added that there.
Oh, it's an A.
Will,
Why is
that's
this round?
really good for 5 minutes, Will. Fuck
Yeah.
me.
Oh, shit.
You know what? Good job.
That's
I
absolutely-
agree.
Oh, wow.
It's not a yeah.
But you could fix that.
It's not the
could
crossbar
fix
like
it.
normal, but that still fits the same vibe.
Well done.
I don't know what. I just image traced it in, so it looks a bit weird. But like, I reckon that
Yeah.
could
There's
work
something there.
a little
There's
bit
something
more.
there.
Yeah.
Because if you move it,
See,
up,
Yeah,
I-
you're right. It is too
Mm-hmm.
much to bring it to an actual crossbar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The
It
apertures
loses
are wrong and
everything.
the spacing feels weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well done.
Good job,
that's my
buddy.
thoughts.
I like that.
Impressed.
All right, now my logo that I am not very fond of. So
yeah. This stinks.
I had so many issues with when this came out, just because it made no sense. It wasn't a logo evolution. They tried to take a really good utilitarian app and kind of make it feel like a commercial, a consumer brand. That C and the Mobius Center had so much deep meaning, and all the variations of it made no sense. Like, to me, it looks like we talk about, rhythms with women on a monthly basis. Well, this looks like it could be like a menstrual
rebrand?
cycle app.
Is this the first logo? Is this a rebrand?
No, well, I mean, their
looks
original
like a
logo.
new-
It is. It's their new logo, and this was 2 years ago. Their old one was like a little calendar icon, and it was very basic, the original one. And they dipped the calendar. I mean, again, it's Calendly. It's what they do. But I don't
more
understand where
sense.
this C came from. It looks like
It's
a uterus.
more, yeah, and it's more like the.
What does it mean?
It doesn't look clear. Like it's it's a little wavy throughout
Yes.
it. Like I'm like, why? I wonder why they did that.
And again, the funny thing is they built up this giant, corporate identity around it, right? Which you think is cool, but again, it's using that Mobius shape in the middle of the C. But again, for what the product is, they missed the mark. It's so far from the mark.
have you seen the C in the logo type? It's like falling.
It's falling over. It's tipping over.
Yeah,
it really?
I'm very confused.
oh yeah, it is.
it's-
Yeah.
Okay, 1.5 million this cost.
What?
And
Yes.
some people are comparing it to a toilet seat.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
no.
There you go.
Yes.
There's
It's
that.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
no.
universally hated on a good note, and I'm sorry, that might be a little
I just want to
harsh.
understand the
but
design system of this, though. Like, what does this? What are they trying to do with that blob in the middle? Is
in different corporate identities, it changes shape. They'll actually create different shapes out of it and put it in the middle.
That's just like the every logo.
Do you see what I mean? Yeah, James.
So it's like, okay, all right, stinks. it's awful.
And it's funny because this was a rebrand from Pentagram in New York, right? So
Wow.
again,
Wow.
heavy
I
hitters.
need to see the design system behind this.
Yeah.
I need
Oh,
to
I mean,
understand
it's,
what they're
you
doing.
know,
I
it's-
don't get it.
The execution was top notch for what you'd expect for probably a $30 million rebrand, but I just nothing about this. So this unfortunate and to the point where I can't even find anything good about this, unfortunately.
If they just took away that bloody blob in the middle and it would look so much better. If they're saying it, I'm very confused.
So
it
am
must
I.
be one of those
What
ones
does
where
it
you
mean?
go, it's just like a Picasso, isn't it? On steroids or something.
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't
he
mean to be
designed it.
mean,
No, please. It's you're not the only one. I mean, this is a pretty this logo's pretty interesting.
I never really realized how abstract the line work was in the brand mark.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
It feels off
confusing. me.
balance.
Yeah.
Like that blob
a
in the
rubber
center is
dinghy.
sort of like a rounded hexagon that they've missed
Yes.
one side of. And on the
Yeah.
right, it's smoother than it is on the left. Like,
Exactly. There's so much going on with this, and the problem is people aren't going to give it that much of their attention. They're going to look at it and
I use
cringe.
Calendly, and I've never even looked that closely at it before.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I don't mind the Allendly part of it.
Alan
That's
Lee.
about it.
Nicely, nicely kerned. I
That's
appreciate
nice.
tight kerning.
Yeah. The
Nice
Alan Lee.
rounded tie.
Sure. So that's my not
Love
so
it.
favorite one.
Yeah.
Never looked at that logo, so.
Great.
and
But
it's-
I do have
yeah.
one more that I wanted to show you guys, and I'm curious on everybody's opinions on this one. Okay, so this is a surprise logo. So and a good one, only a good one. We're not dissing here.
go.
So
Yeah.
the Target logo.
Oh, careful.
I mean,
Anna
this
Peters will be on you for this one.
I know, and this almost made my favorite list. But I mean, for the brand, for the shape, for the... I mean, there's nothing to it, which is... I mean, it can't be any more simpler, you know, and its brilliance is in simplicity. But am I just blind on this one? Because to me, I can't find fault in this.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Like, it's a great example of an optically aligned logo versus a metrically aligned one. Like, the weights have been accounted for. The central dot is slightly wider than double the stem width of the outer ring. The white part in the middle is ever so slightly narrower than the... Oh, no, sorry, is it the other way? Ever so slightly... They've accounted for the irradiation illusion. So when, you know, the white on dark, basically, it's... I can't imagine how long they spent tweaking this. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's beautiful. Is it also a perfect circle? Is it actually a perfect circle, or is it slightly squished?
From what I could...
It is a perfect circle.
It is. Thank you, Will.
I'm looking at it
Is that
now.
your eye telling me that?
It must be. It must be.
I'm in
It's
Illustrator.
definitely a perfect circle.
Check. No, I'm actually in Illustrator.
You made it. You're an illustrator. Good.
Yeah. You know, there's something about, I mean, my kids, we don't have Target up in Canada, but my youngest daughter, who's 8, she saw this on my screen last night and she was like, oh, Target. I love that store. And I'm like, you don't even know what this store is. But it's something about the brand, you know, the marketing, what they've done with it, that it's just, I mean, they've even dropped the type in almost every aspect, which I think they've gone to a lowercase.
Wow.
The last redesign, you know, introduced it as a lowercase, but do they even need it? Like, it's so strong as just a mark, a logo on all levels. And I don't think anybody can take it from them.
What I want to know is like how they worked out, because such a logo like that, I might be overcomplicating it, but like, did they use like a ratio for the thickness and the circle in the middle? Did they, like,
I think James might have the answer on this one. James,
I think this is one of those designs where it's just they've eyeballed this to the point where it's
Eyeballed,
like, you're accounting for, it's the, what do you call it, the Mueller-Lyer illusion. You know, overshoot with the O. The central dot is, you know, not mathematically correct. It should be like the spacing between the outer ring, the inner ring, and then the first half of that circle should be exact. If you're thinking about like, you know, how this should be like mathematically aligned, but it's not, and it's beautiful. I think like Alan Peters took some of this and did some branding with it as
Yes,
well.
he
Like
did.
he replaced the central dot
So
with
good.
loads of cool different icons like frisbees and you know, cherries and handbags and stuff like that. And it just as a reductive icon, goodness me, does this stand the test of time or what?
it does, right?
Arguably, probably, there's a million logos out there that have this in it as well. You know, how much can you actually sort of anti-plagiarism protect this one, because it's a dot with a ring around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
true.
to kind of,
two primitive shapes?
Yeah. Cool. All right, so I'm not crazy on that one.
No.
No, not at all.
Well, guys, thank you for this. I think this is exactly what I was hoping for when I achieved this. I mean, I wish I had a couple drinks in me, and we had the usual, you know, whiskey kind of rants on this one. But you know, I think this was a great.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually.
Right. I think this achieved kind of what I was hoping to. I mean, to have you know, us kind of come together, different viewpoints, and all three of you are experts. And I mean, you're experts in your fields. You have your strengths, and coming together, it's just kind of is a great exercise to go through.
Big time.
I think there's a lot of value here that we've given out to people with these thoughts.
Yeah.
I feel like we should all 5 of us do a collaborative logo effort and put all of our ideas in one pot and come up with some, you know, beautiful design for some fake company and see what we can come up with.
Well, Will had an interesting. Will, you want to pitch us that concept?
Yeah, so the idea is draw 2 minutes, pass it on, or design 2 minutes, pass it on.
Yeah.
So one of us, it's like that game you play when you're a kid where you give them a brief, the first person starts designing it for 2 minutes, and then you sort of keep passing it around, and then after the couple cycles, we show you what it was for. So it could go really well or really wrong. So there's stakes in the game.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I'm involved, it's the latter, for sure.
Yeah. We could go to 5 minutes. Like,
The hard part will be make Sean not to use impact. No impact.
More than 5 minutes,
damn
and we'll
it.
start charging.
yeah.
Well, this is definitely
this was
something.
really fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
this was
this.
great.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you all for doing this. You
guys
know,
are the best.
and you know, honestly, I hope everybody who logged in and checked us out and who's following us and watching us on everywhere got something out of this episode. There was so many unique ways to kind of look at this,
Yes.
and you know, I hope this is just the start of something really cool happening here. But yeah, I guess on behalf of Will, Kristy, James, Sean, and myself.
Yes.
Guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you guys.
Yeah,
It was a
thank you.
pleasure.
Yes.
All right, stay creative.
We do your
That's
sign off.
angry.
All right.
And no, stick around.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, no, this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some loose shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in